It's a live edition of the KC Laboratory presented by Emprise Bank. Member FDIC, are tremendous partners in Possible here at KC Sports Network. Wednesdays are Matter Days, and it is a full-fledged Matter Day today. There are all three Matts here: Matt Swanson, Matt Hamilton, Matt Lane. Matty Lane, how we doing today?
Listen, I'm doing good, but we were quick into this thing. We got here fast. We were real slick. We were real smooth, kind of like Kent's face, getting right into this podcast, and we were ready to rock. We were ready to roll. And you know what? We get a lot of free agency talk. I think we need to get going with this. I don't want to push the show over 60 minutes and upset Kent. So Hamilton, I'm glad that you're here. And how has your free agency period gone for you so far?
It's been a wild time. Obviously started with a lot of moves, and as far as Up and Adams is concerned, deciding to go to the Players Championship in the midst of free agency definitely didn't help make things smoother. But it's been a fun time. I feel like this was an especially active free agency period, and the Sunday leading into it too had a lot going on. So it's been fun to follow.
Yeah, I just realized that it's been 3 days since legal tampering. It feels like it's been a week and a half.
Oh yeah.
Like it really does feel like it's been a minute. Hamilton, did you give thought to going to the Players Championship at all? Was that something that you considered doing, or was that in the cards at all?
It was not on the table. This came together about 2 days before she got there. This was decided. So there's a lot of action in the chat right now for Ken's face.
I shaved yesterday. I was trimming things up and my kid was in there and he's like, you should shave it off. I was like,
and he listened to one Sabrina Carpenter song for the first time, and the next thing you know, this is what we see. He listened to Bad Kim. And it really spoke to him, and so this is what comes out on the other side.
This was all before Cancun spring break video, and that was it. Yeah.
This is all before I listened to my first Sabrina Carpenter song ever.
Are you feeling blue about losing the beard?
Kent looks 25. Looks like he's 25. I do look significantly younger when I do this.
You really do, yeah.
My kid kind of influenced me to do this. I'm not gonna lie, and so I just did it, and then I clean shaved it. I trimmed it up. Oh man, I'm gonna get This is Matt Swanson. Yeah. I'm getting
that is Matt Low T Swanson right there.
Oh, Hamilton, you missed this. Matt Miller, we did a podcast with him. We did a draft show with him last week, and he just called me Low T Matt. 1 T. So I'm just this is what Low T looks like right here. Tucker.
Sorry, shout out everybody that doesn't have a beard. We're not calling you all Low T. Let's go back there.
I am getting bullied online. Is what's happening. But I do this like once a year, and I can't wait to get my facial hair back. I can just tell you that much. My 3-year-old has never seen me like this, like that he can remember, and he's loving it. He thinks it's the best thing ever that I'm like completely clean shaven and all that stuff. But yeah, at least I do have a lot of gray hair up top as well, so that's great. I'm sure the audio listeners are loving 3 minutes on my facial hair. You'll just have to listen to the audio and then go find the picture that I'm sure
sorry. It's not in the rundown.
That's okay.
Can we add it to the rundown, please?
Low T Swanson gives a little bit of leeway at the beginning of the show. You have like 5 minutes to start the show that you're allowed to freelance, and then and then the whips start cracking, and then we got to lock in. So
we're
down
right.
to about 10 seconds.
I'm Ron Swanson. I read straight from the teleprompter, and I think if Tucker wanted to schedule little shenanigan breaks in between each thing we talk about, then like we could do that. But that's just a long run. That's a long rundown if you ask me. Go if you're an audio only listener, just go to the YouTube, go to the KCSN YouTube, check it out. You can see my Stupid face. Found another chin down there. Like, this ain't motivation to lose weight. I don't know what is. But we'll have to get on that. Kent needs an adult.
These are good. We got a lot of creative viewers.
Yeah, keep them coming. It's fine. We'll take little side quests and just make fun of me in my face the rest of the show if we need to.
Yeah, just keep popping them up as they come in.
Tucker is so there's like a green room. We can see Tucker behind the scenes, and he's enjoying every second of me just getting roasted online.
Oh man, I need that feed. I don't get to see Tucker.
Yeah, you don't. That's true.
Yeah.
You don't. I'm kind of glad you're not seeing him because this is he's enjoying it.
I think we just throw the comments up of people coming and react to Kent's beard and see if it's your guys' job to get us to break in the middle of a topic or a point that we're saying. Like that's your goal is to get us to break mid sentence with your best your best roast of Kent's mates.
Mr. Proctober. Wow, Kent's kid grew up so fast.
They do look identical now that he shaved his beard. I said that before we started.
Yeah, no. Before we started, he goes, "Yeah, hey, you and Cam really do look a lot like each other." Now, I didn't think it for the longest time. I was like, "Yeah, well, you have a beard, so." Okay, we should probably get started, I guess, and get through that rundown. 7 minutes on my face is too many.
Well, Fishing with Josh asked a question. Do the Chiefs sign a defensive lineman? So,
I would hope so.
You wouldn't have. I think we all would. Kid, what say you? Sorry, Matt Swanson. What say you?
Will the Chiefs sign any defensive lineman? I have a feeling that they probably won't roll into the next season with just Chris Jones along the interior defensive line and just Siaki Ika. So who's on the a futures contract. So yeah, no, I will bake some of that into a question that we're going to talk about here in a little bit, I think. But actually, I don't think we are. Never mind. Saw the rundown. That's not on the rundown. Maddie,
gotta stick to the rundown.
No, I'm gonna ask you this question. No, we'll do it after the Fulton. We'll do it after the Fulton.
Okay.
We'll do it after the Fulton conversation or somewhere along the lines. But I'm curious about something. But anyways, big news off the top: Christian Fulton, the newest cornerback for the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs make an investment in the corner position, which they've had the luxury of having cost-controlled players at that position for the last 4 or 5 years. When you include L'Jarius Sneed in the mix as well, and then they wind up not paying him. They've actually, they've done a tremendous job over the course of the Patrick Mahomes era with the cornerback spot. As far as it's not been the reason this team has lost Super Bowls. At times, it's been a big factor in them winning Super Bowls. And like they've been on a hot streak the last few years, but they bring in outside help in a significant way. And the biggest investment at cornerback, I'm trying to think the last time, is this the biggest investment at cornerback in the Brett Veach era? I don't know if I can come up with another player that they've paid at the cornerback position at the clip that they have here. Or do you have one, Lane? Matthew Lane? Maddie Lane?
No. I mean, drafting Trent McDuffie, trading up for Trent McDuffie is a bigger investment than the price tag. No, I understand. That's the only other one though. I was thinking like, even if you go beyond Trent, I don't think they've invested draft capital that would rival what they paid Christian Fulton. And still, it's not like they paid him a ton. It's still just $10 million a year. It's a very reasonable contract. So yeah, this is a pretty big investment for them in terms of money being spent on the corner position, specifically for a free agent or somebody outside the building. I think as people connected to the team have been quick to tell you, the Chiefs know a lot about Christian Fulton. They did a lot of work on him coming out of LSU, 4 years drafts ago now. They were well prepared for him coming out as potentially interested in drafting him. And then when he was a free agent, they were still interested. It's like they know a lot about his background. They've already done a lot of work on him. So I feel like that's probably why they feel comfortable going this route. And then I do think his progression as a player, specifically, I'm going to go with as a tackler, probably really piqued Spag's interest because that is something that you must do to play in his system. So yeah, big-ish big investment for them, not that big of an investment in general, but I think it
Right.
provides some more stability to the outside cornerback room in hopes, at least in my thoughts, is to get Trent McDuffie to play back inside more frequently where he is better. And then when you do play the Eagles, you get to avoid the AJ Brown, Trent McDuffie matchup, which is apparently like the one thing that just is simply never going to happen.
Yeah, and Maddie, that's what it's a great point. This allows them to kind of play the way they want to with McDuffie, I think, making this move. And when you look at some of the underlying numbers, some of the advanced stuff on Fulton, there's some pretty good stuff there. Especially when you look at his tight window percentage via Next Gen Stats, he's top 10. He was top 10 in that last year. McDuffie was 8th, or sorry, McDuffie was 7th. So really, guys aren't creating a ton of separation against him. Some of the other stuff, the passer rating, stuff like that isn't, is mediocre, but that's something that stood out to me. Guys aren't creating a ton of separation there. And again, when you Jalen Watson if Jalen Watson plays the way he did before he got hurt, along with Fulton on the outside, McDuffie being able to use him on the inside more, it's a good cornerback room now. It does make them better there. The one thing is it seems like this came at the expense of Justin Reed, and it seems like there wasn't a huge effort to get Justin Reed back. But once you saw that signing, you knew it was pretty much over for Reed, and he signed with the Saints, not too long after that. So that's the one thing I think you have to factor into the equation here with that signing. But overall, I mean, it definitely makes that cornerback room a lot stronger. And it was an issue we had talked about a bunch throughout the season last year, and that's now resolved.
Boy, I hadn't even looked at it from that lens, but when you look at the APY for Christian Fulton and Justin Reed, they're very similar. Now, the guaranteed money and how much cash each player got is a little different, but the APYs are very similar. That's a really good thought, a really good point. And so the Chiefs are moving on from Justin Reed, and they are paying Christian Fulton very similar APYs. That is, and again, like shorter term, less guaranteed money, but that is kind of interesting when you think about it. I looked at the Christian Fulton signing, from the lens of we talked about the 2022 draft class a little bit earlier. This has been such a huge factor in this team's success on the defensive side of the football, and the bill is going to be coming due for them in 2026 unless they are able to start coming to some extensions, or hey, they're going to have to pay the 5th-year deals of McDuffie and Karlaftis in 2026 if they want to keep them around, which I anticipate they're at least around for 2026. But when you're looking at a Najee Johnson, Jalen Watson, Joshua Williams, even like Brian Cook, from that perspective, all those guys are going to be free agent. Leo Chanel, free agents in 2022. This serves as a little bit of stability for the Chiefs at the cornerback position, where you might have some bridging between this wave and the next wave, where if Christian Fulton's here between 2025 and 2026, now you've got somebody that is here as a depth competition and playing a lot of football, I would imagine, this year, pushing on that 2022 class who's all playing for a payday this year, and then helping stabilize things for next season when the Chiefs are faced with some tough decisions about who to pay, who not to pay in the back end of that defense that they're all losing. So I think logically, take the player out. Even I think just process wise, I do understand and I get why they do it. And I think it's smart just to add more bodies that will be here for multiple years and allow them to kind of have a core next season without knowing that they're going to be losing a lot of guys.
Well, yeah, a couple things I wanted to go through here. I agree with the idea of like this does give them a little bit. I mean, like that 1 year buffer of next year if they might be without some of those guys in the secondary whose contracts coming up. I saw somebody in the chat had asked, what did we think this is like a way to get McDuffie onto like a nickel corner or something contract? No, I don't think so. He's gonna get JC Horn got $1 bazillion. Trent McDuffie's gonna get plenty of money regardless of where he plays. But I do think the plan to push McDuffie back into the slot when they go with 3 corners is probably to help mitigate the weaknesses they have in the middle of the field elsewise. Like if you look at last year, there was a pretty big drop off in their ability to cover over the middle of the field. And like some of that was them not being great against tight ends, but like their slot corner and Shamari Connor playing there instead of Trent McDuffie took a significant step back. They don't have the best coverage linebackers in the NFL. Drew Tranquil took a step back from 2 years ago. Nick Bolton's not known for his coverage. And while Justin Reed was a solid in coverage and Jaden Hicks is showing you flashes, none of those guys are like at this point anywhere close to as good as McDuffie is. So getting him back in the slot not only allows him to play better, but I do think you protect yourself from where some of those big weaknesses of your defense showed to be last year. So like, I think that's a big part of it going forward. And now I did want to touch on too before. I didn't know how fast Kent was going to get us out of here. So I did want to go back to Fulton real quick for those who go out and watch his tape. There's some really ugly stuff on film from the Chargers. Okay.
Yeah.
Like I want to be very clear. There's some really bad stuff, but if you watch, a lot of it's coming when they're playing quarters and he's playing, like he's bailing out. He seems to get really tall in his transitions. He gets pressed by speed a lot when he's playing bail and he gives a lot of space, and it's created bad transitions where he almost falls over. If you go back to when he played with the Titans, especially in 2022, he was pressing a lot more. He was playing up on the line of scrimmage a lot more often. And you can just tell he's more comfortable lined up on the line of scrimmage, not playing with all that extra space. Well, guess what team leads the NFL and, their outside corners aligned in press? The Kansas City Chiefs. So I implore you, if you do want to go and watch Fulton, don't get sucked into just what happened last year for the Chargers, because there was ups, but there was definitely some really ugly downs. Go a bit farther back, because when he does get to play closer to the line of scrimmage, I do think he looks a lot more comfortable. And so that's just something that stuck out to me when I was going back through and watching it.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, there were definitely some ugly moments last year, but you're right. He didn't look totally comfortable in that defense, and the Titans stuff, much better optics on that for sure. And as I said, there were some good things last year to take away. Again, when you look at some of those underlying numbers, but those bad moments are what push some of the other numbers in a bad direction. Because when he was getting burned, he was really getting burnt. But yeah, no, it definitely makes him better. And to your point, yeah, this means Shamari Connor's. That's basically the trade-off. Shamari Connor is not going to be on the field in those situations. And while he brought some good things to his defense last year, especially when he was blitzing, the coverage was really an issue. And this is definitely going to make them a lot better in coverage. So, and I think it does, to the Justin Reed point, I think it tells you what they think of Hicks, I think, at this point. Because, again, it doesn't seem like there was a huge effort made to bring Justin Reed back. So I do think it says a lot about their perception of him.
I wonder, do we think Shamari Connor plays more in a deep half this year? Like, do we see them try to put him as like a true safety, or like how what do we think that like the plan is there? Because like he has played some of that in the past, but primarily has been utilized and weaponized in the slot. I'm just fascinated to see if that's something that they try to employ too. Just on its face, like I think safety is still something that this team needs to take a look at. And
he can give depth there, I think, for sure. It's hard for me to imagine him being out there a ton with this construction. But
I'm just fascinated to see what the plan is. If it's just completely taking him off the field entirely, or they want to try to keep him on the field, or what it is. But plump from a deep half alignment, like maybe, I don't know. We'll see. We're going to take a break. We're going to talk about Trey Smith and the extension that still hasn't happened after this.
Shop Chiefs tickets and more with no fees. Plus, save big with code KCSN at ticketsforless.com, the official ticket provider of KC Sports Network.
Success in real estate takes more than vision. It takes the right financial partner. When someone takes something rundown and turns it into something great, that's called a comeback story. Like Bryan Group. They take distressed properties here in KC, completely rework them, and then turn them into valuable real estate. But that kind of work needs the right bank behind it. Enter Emprise Bank. They're not about cookie-cutter loans. They saw Bryan Group's vision, backed them, and now they're making big moves in Kansas City real estate. Talk about your partner in possible. Emprise doesn't do one-size-fits-all financing. They invest in potential and back growth. Visit emprisebank.com/KC to learn more. Emprise Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
The league year started today. at 3 p.m. Everyone. So
4.
happy 3 p.m. Central Time. It was, we've been doing all these things. We've been talking about all these things, and it just officially became real like 5 hours ago. We were waiting on a move to happen. That finally did today, right before, hours before the official league year started. The Chiefs restructured Patrick Mahomes' contract, also restructured Chris Jones's contract, which was a little bit surprising. But they created about $50 million in cap space. They've opened some things up for themselves. They've given themselves a little bit of flexibility here. That news, I think we were all anticipating, but I think there was some optimism and expectation that we'd also see Trey Smith's extension done sooner rather than later. And here we are, and he still hasn't signed a long-term extension. He's, I believe he's signed the tag, correct?
Yeah,
he did.
And so $23 million on the books. The Chiefs have the flexibility now.
Just live in this world. They live in this world. They just love it. They just love carrying franchise tag cap hits into free agency just to jettison them in a couple weeks. It's a lot of fun.
Well, it's just like it's surprising because like last year it really held them up as far as what they were trying to do. It looked
and
like
the year before
to try to figure some things out, and like, okay, yeah, they're on the heels of Super Bowls every time that they've done it. So is it that frustrating? I don't know. But now we're here again, and this time it's with Trey Smith. The Chiefs have a lot more flexibility for the remainder of their offseason based on just, the cap space that they have, but they still like Trey Smith's deal is not done. Doesn't seem like there's a ton of buzz about it. When do we think this thing's going to get done? Are we going to get this Trey Smith deal done before the draft? Like, are we getting a Trey Smith deal done? Because like the numbers keep going up here with the interior offensive line market. Like, what do you guys feel right now? How do you feel about this, Hamilton?
I mean, the entire offensive line market has been a little weird outside of Ronnie Stanley. I think, looking at this now, the Ravens got him back at a bargain. But yeah, I don't know. Again, there's not as much urgency because they have around 28 million in cap space right now to operate with. So, it would have been nice if they had gotten these restructures done a week or so earlier, and gotten a trade done earlier, but we are where we are right now, and I think seeing what's gone on with this offensive line market isn't going to help them in the negotiations for sure.
Yeah, I mean, my read on it was the moment that Chris Jones was chosen to be part of this restructure, that meant that Trey Smith's extension was nowhere in sight, because I don't foresee now with the way Chris Jones' deal is. I've seen some projections or people run through it and stuff like that. It sounds like it's something as simple as, Chris, if they do the entire Patrick Mahomes restructure, if they move as much money as they can, they only have to borrow a little bit from Chris Jones, and only increases his cap hit per year by like a little over $4 million, which isn't terrible. But still, the concept of but pushing money further into Chris Jones' contract to where you have more on the books longer for a guy that's going to be 33 and 34 years old at the end of the deal, that to me tells me they didn't have other options. They didn't have other ways to go about trying to clear up this money, which means that Trey Smith extension most likely isn't right around the corner, or at least it's not on the verge of being signed. And didn't Trey Smith just change his agent? Did Trey Smith change his agency, or did I? No, maybe not. Maybe I just saw something fake about that. So either way, it's just, I don't think that is coming anytime soon. That was just my read on using the Chris Jones money, because again, they pushed money deeper into an aging veteran defensive tackles contract. That's not something you do if you have other options, I think, to clear space.
So here's the thing I'm a little fascinated about. Why did the Chiefs? Why did they I feels like they could have fit Joe Thuney in potentially, like that's a piece of it too, and maybe they couldn't have. I know it would be a little bit tight, but feels like they might have been able to do that. Maybe you don't extend the tenders, the $3 million tender to Jack Cochran and Najee Johnson, and you have the flexibility to be able to, keep Joe Thuney. So earlier, like a week ago, it felt more like they are doing this just to, have some more cap flexibility. But then they really kind of unloaded the clip and just created a ton for themselves. I guess I'm just, it's not that I'm disappointed or anything in the decision. It's just, it does feel like they might have had the ability to keep Joe Thuney if they really wanted to this season, just kind of looking at how things are going so far.
Yeah, but you look at it too, there's still so many things they need to add right now, especially on the defensive line, like we talked about, both on the interior and on the edge. I think they need to add. And if they had kept Thuney, they'd have marginal space. As I said, they're about 20 million under the cap right now. What was Thuney said again? It was 20.
Well, I think, yeah, it's 20 is 26, something like that.
26, yeah. And they saved 16 million, right, by making the trade. So
yeah,
it would have cut that space basically in half, by more than half. And yeah, they need to make like 4 or 5 more signings here probably before we get to the draft. So it would have been tight. It would have been tough. You're right. It would have given them the option at least. But yeah, I think you're dead on, Maddie. I think the fact that they did these restructures, especially the Chris Jones restructure, tells me that this Trey Smith thing is probably going to drag out for a little bit.
And how do they just keep doing that, man? And like, I get it. It's not just one side, right? It's never just one side. So you can't blame them entirely. But boy, this sure seems to happen to them an awful lot where they get stuck in this exact position and they don't have they just never get out of it quickly. They just never do. They get stuck here for a long time. And then it feels like they have to not penny pinch, but it feels like they have to be a lot more calculated with the moves they make. And to like Kent's point, maybe they could or couldn't have kept Joe Thuney. I don't know. But like if you get a Trey Smith extension done and you also clear out money that way, you could definitely have kept Joe Thuney if you wanted to, if you valued him more than the draft pick next year coming back on day 3. So it's just, it really seems to limit them that they keep doing this. And it is frustrating from the outside. And we'll see how it plays out as it stands now, like to the point of they have other guys to sign. I agree, but they still need to sign plenty of like a handful of players. Issue is there's not a lot of guys left remaining out there for the little bit of money they have. Like it's starting to get a little thin. And so if they were waiting to get these extensions announced or agreed upon to do it, and that like hampered them in any way, that's extra frustrating. So I don't know. The Chiefs' timelines in free agency is always so funny to me because they consistently ride these high cap hits of franchise tag players. They usually do make a relatively big signing right as agreement to sign right as the legal tampering period opens up, and then they'll go quiet for a while. It's just their timeline for these things is always so funny.
Yeah, it really is. And to your point, most of the good interior D linemen are gone. There's still some talent on the edge, which we can get into, I think, in a little bit, but the interior D line is thin right now, and maybe part of that is we're probably going to see him take a couple guys there in the draft because this is such a deep D tackle draft. But you would love to get one of those veterans in the building.
Well, let's talk about that, right? Let's look at some of these positions that we still think the Chiefs are thin at, and I think we can look at all the interior defensive linemen all we want. This team has also not been great about. They just simply don't prioritize the interior defensive line outside of, paying Chris Jones the highest number. It's like they're deciding, hey, let's put it all in him, and then we're going to sign Mike Pennell and Derek Nottie to lower level deals, to league minimum deals, and like Tershawn Wharton. They've been
maybe that's why their 4-man pass rush always stinks.
Yeah, maybe. Especially with Tershawn Wharton on the way, he's out, right? Yeah. I don't. That's just what I'm curious to see how they're going to approach this, because you're right. Like if you look at some of the names, like they're all gone. Hargrave, Allen, Draymond Jones, Grady Jarrett, Sheldon Rankins, DJ Jones, BJ Hill, Larry Ogunjobi, Javon Kinlaw, Roy Robertson Harris, Jaron Reed, DeMarcus Walker. Greg Gaines, Solomon Thomas. You're seeing Turk Wharton. You're seeing a lot of the names. Roy Lopez, like Poona Ford, Milton Williams, Osa Digizua. Golly, there's so many. Like we don't need to go through all of them, but so many names are. You're
down to
clean.
Dalvin Tomlinson, who's like the June 1st cut from the Brown. Like that's like what you're down to, right? That's all that's left. There's not a whole lot on the interior. I think like Levi Onwuzurike went off the board today, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And like, some of these guys we're saying aren't stars by any means, but they are players that probably slate up a little bit higher out in the pecking order than bringing Mike Pennell and Derek Nottie back yet again, right? And so it's a little frustrating that they continue to go down this route. And like, I fully understand strong draft class for defensive tackle. You can take one or two in that, but you don't want to have to. And the way they're shaping up right now, they're going to have to, and they're going to have to do it early because they don't have the luxury of being like, oh no, don't worry. You don't need to play year one. You kind of have to because they are running out of bodies. And I mean, listen, let's also talk to the point. Chris Jones isn't getting younger, right? Chris Jones is not getting younger. I don't want to say that he's starting to fall off, but I do think if you watch Chris Jones last year, he can't take over any game that he wants to anymore. It can be a game, like he can take over a game, but it's not any game that he wants. It has to be the right set of circumstances for him to become the most dominant player on the field. That's the first sign that it might be going. This is what happened to Travis Kelce 2 years ago, right? It wasn't that he couldn't take over a game and be the best player. It's just he couldn't do it anytime he chose to. It kind of had to be the right situation. That's where it feels like Chris Jones is right now. What happens if that cliff starts coming? You need some guys in there that are better than Derek Nottie and Mike Pennell to help bridge that gap. And they didn't position themselves well to do that without having to draft somebody early on.
Yeah. I mean, you look at the interior right now, it's like Calais Campbell's out there. He's about to be 40. And beyond
Davis?
that,
What are we doing here?
Morgan Fox, I think, might still be out there. Like that's where we're at right now. But as I said, there is some edge talent still out there. I see a bunch of people in the chat bringing up Von Miller. I don't know quite how I feel about that. Dante Fowler, Charles Lemenahu coming back. Dante Fowler seems like he has a little inflated sense of what he should be paid right now, which is why he's still out there and what he's tweeting. Because he only played 50% of snaps. He had a double-digit sack season. He was great for the Commanders, but he's only out there half the time. Mm-hmm. You're not going to get premier edge rusher money when you're only on the field half the time and you're on the other side of 30. But if he gets more realistic expectations and wants to join a contender, that would be a great option to throw into that rotation. I don't know that that's going to happen again based on what he's tweeting, but yeah, there are some guys out there that can make an impact on the edge, which I think they also need to add here.
I wonder if some of the bigger impact players do wind up being, bigger investments on the edge. Cause like, I do think the edge group underwhelmed, and like, you've got Chris, and like, if you want to play Chris and Derek Nottie and Pennell, like, that's fine to a level, but like they just need more production out of their edge group, and they've needed more production out of their edge group over the last couple of years. They just need some more juice, juice rushing. And so maybe that's, Felix Anudike-Uzomah taking a step, like that could be part of it. But like, I think they need to get some fresh blood in there. And yes, the draft is still coming, but I'd rather see this team make some level of investment in the edge group here, just to keep things, more known commodities off the edge would be something I think that would be beneficial to this team. Outside of the defensive line, other positions that you want to see this team target, Maddie Lane, any positions that you want to see this team target before they get into the draft?
Oh, well, so I mean, like, here's the tricky part, right? Like, every position we're saying can also be addressed in the draft. You just can't address them all. So like, that's why you got to start to pick some of these, right? So I'm going to go to safety. We talked about Justin Reed and the importance of losing him earlier. Yeah, I agree. I don't, if you're choosing Fulton over Justin Reed with the thought that it pushes McDuffie back to the slot, I fully understand the logic there, but let's get another safety in the building, because I mean, Brian Cook, whether it was injury related or not, seemed to not quite find his footing that he had, from earlier in his career last year. It seemed like there was a little bit more of a struggle for him. Chamari Connor, I understand, didn't play a ton in the deep half, but like, I don't know if that's his best spot either, if you go back and look at him as like a rookie. So I would love to see another safety, specifically one that's a little bit more of a coverage first player back there. And so you want to go out there and sign, I mean, I know he's older now, but Justin Simmons can still go out there and be a veteran leader on the back end of a safety. Or if you want to be a little younger, I think Julian Blackman's still available. Like he seems like a pretty good, yeah, he's a pretty good pairing to go with Hicks, who I think is more of a Justin Reed type of safety that you drop in the box more frequently and you let Blackman play a little bit more on the back end. So I just think there's some safety options that could come in, provide that veteran leadership, allow Spags to still be really versatile on the back end. Because I don't know if Brian Cook and Shamari Connor give you that with still breaking in a second-year Jaden Hicks as like your chess piece. I don't know if Hicks is ready for that yet. Maybe he is, and I'm being silly, but I think you would feel a lot better if you had a veteran back there to kind of help cover up any mistakes that do happen, because I don't know if they feel great about Brian Cook or Shamari Connor being that safety blanket back there that makes everything okay and leads that group.
Yeah, and right now, Cook and Hicks are the only listed safeties on the roster. I know, as we talked about, Shamari Connor can play, Chris Roland Wallace can be a safety at times. So there's other guys.
They both played in a deep alignment, at least during training camp and some of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so there is more depth there than it may look on paper, but yeah, that is definitely an area of need right now, because Brian Cook, who's, I think it's fair to say, it was a weakness on this defense last year, and Justin Reed, having a Justin Reed can cover that a little bit at times. I am optimistic about Jaden Hicks. But again, he's a young player who hasn't been out there for extended periods of time. And that is a lot to roll the dice with going into the season when you really don't know what that tandem is going to look like out there.
All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be back right after this.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network. Entertain, educate, inform. KC Sports Network.
I did want to throw out one more position to target real quick before we move on. I wouldn't hate to see this team add another wide receiver. Like, I don't think that would be. What was that?
I don't have to interrupt you now.
I had a feeling that was
I successfully have interrupted you anyway, but now I don't have to.
Yeah, it's not necessary.
You can just do it because you want to.
Yeah. I just, I figured I'd help Tuck balance the show out with these breaks a little bit. That's why I wanted to just jump in there. Anyways, but yeah, I think throwing a receiver into the mix wouldn't be a bad idea either. Maddie, I know we always joke about like this team really not leveraging or utilizing a true X receiver. Is that the body profile you're prioritizing? What are you trying to get if the Chiefs are to try to address the receiver spot?
I mean, I don't even care if it's a traditional X wide receiver. They just need somebody that when they want to go four to one side, when they want to go 4x1 and get one player on the backside, one-on-one with the corner, watch how the Eagles played that. They got everybody on the field to that 4 receiver side and they just flooded everything. Go watch. I mean, DeJean's interception's a perfect example of it. They just threw everybody they had it there and they said, we guarantee you whoever you have on the backside can't get open. Guess what? They were right. And they've been right for years now since Tyreek Hill left. The Chiefs just don't have that kind of guy. And I don't think Rashee Rice coming back fixes that, because that's not been his game. Xavier Worthy has shown some flashes of being able to beat man coverage, but they still, when you look at him, have come a lot more when they're a little protected, whether it's from a stack or they can keep him off the line of scrimmage rather than being right on it and letting him get pressed. So it doesn't need to be a 6'3", 220-pound wide receiver that can win a 50-50 ball. It just needs to be somebody that every now and then can go run a slant, can run a dig, can do something that beats man coverage and get open, so that when Andy's flood concepts don't work, they don't just have to scrap the play and they have a backside option available. Earlier in the career, you know who that was? Travis Kelce, because he made everything right. And that's how they fixed. That's how the offense never really had those significant downs when you go from 2019 to 2022. It's because Kelce could be that guy when they needed it. They haven't had that since as he's gotten older. So they just need somebody that can reliably win on a couple routes, backside versus man coverage. And I mean, there's not, we're talking about it's deep into free agency now. It's not like there's a ton of guys available that can do that. But hey, maybe you throw the dice on Amari Cooper, and what he showed in Buffalo wasn't really what he can do last year, because his entire career has been just this, right? Maybe Stephon Diggs, you won't start the year healthy, but when he comes back from that ACL injury halfway through the year, maybe he's got a little bit left in that kind of role. Just, they might have somebody out there that can do what you hope DeAndre Hopkins could do with a little bit more juice.
Yeah, that kind of leads me. I don't want to jump the rundown, but that was one of my burning questions was about this very position. So
let's go.
Let's go, Tuck. There it is. So we've heard his name. We've heard his name thrown out there. What do you guys think about the possibility of a Cooper Kupp?
I don't think he fits that we just talked about, right? Like I don't think Cooper Kupp's ever been a guy that's going to be lining up on the outside and beating man coverage. And I think now at this point in his career, it's even less likely. So like you throw him into this offense and you have Rashee Rice, wanting these short underneath slot reps. You have Xavier Worthy that maybe it's not only short reps, but you want to run him out of the slot so you can get him on these crossers and these overs and stuff to really use his speed. And you have Hollywood Brown, who last year they essentially only used as a slot. Let's hide him underneath players. So like, I don't know how you would fit Cooper Kupp into that. I wouldn't be mad, I guess, if he didn't cost anything and they gave it a go, but I just don't know how you fit all those guys together on the field.
Yeah.
I mean,
and I was going to say too, like Hollywood Brown should be able to be that guy you were talking about too, if he's healthy, and can stretch the field a little bit. Like they brought him back. That was a pretty big number to bring him back at based on what he showed last year. So I'm hoping they get more out of him. I'm hoping that's where that comes from, and they don't necessarily need to add another guy. But sorry, Kent, I will.
No, I think if there's any team I would trust to try to fit a Cooper Kupp or somebody with that skill set into what they already have, like it's Andy Reid, and like, they like to play from condensed, and that can help you a little bit with some of that stuff. But like, I do think he's probably not the best fit at this point in his career, especially since we've talked so much about this team lacking juice. And like, that's one thing Cooper Kupp does not have at this point in his career is juice. And so, yes, they've got vertical elements that, can play from the slot, that like to play from the slot with Hollywood and with Worthy, but also like, I don't think you want to clog that up too much. I think they could figure it out if they really wanted to, but I don't really foresee them doing it, and I don't think it's like the perfect fit exactly what they need right now.
I agree. All right, one of mine we kind of went through as far as how this affects the draft. So I'll move to the last. Who around the league do you think has done the best job this offseason so far?
Ooh, let me look at this.
Yeah, I gotta process now. I wasn't ready for this one. I mean, like, I'm trying to think, like, starting with
just who stood out to you, who maybe not the best job, but just who you like.
Like, Kent's got somebody.
I think the Minnesota Vikings have done some good stuff. They've added some bodies. They've really leaned in this offseason into. It seems like they're leaning. I mean, I think they've tried to, some veteran quarterbacks, but like if you're gonna play a rookie on a rookie contract, like add the rest of the roster around them. Like I think they've done some pretty good stuff there. They've improved both lines significantly, both offensively and defensively, like adding, Ryan Kelly, and then, adding some juice along the interior, Jonathan Allen, Javon Hargrave. Like I think that was good. Will Fries too. Like they've really, like, they've put JJ McCarthy in a position to succeed, and they've got a really good, they got a lot of talent on the defensive side of the ball. So like, I think the Vikings have done a good job. Would be one.
Yeah,
I like that one.
Commanders, they trade for Laramie Tunsil. Whether that means Brandon Coleman kicks into guard or over to the right side and Andrew Wiley moves, I don't know what it's going to be, but like I like that. I like how the shuffling of that offensive line is going to work. Bringing in Deebo Samuel to go with that offense, I think he actually gives them a pretty good complementary piece to what they have going on with everything else. So I like what they have done defensively. I don't know if I love the deals they've given out on the defensive side, but they have done a good job adding pieces that they needed help with, right? If that makes sense, right? Like, I don't know if I would love a Kinlaw deal or anything like that, but they've added pieces where they do need it. And then, like I said, I really do think that Laramie Tunsil deal, which allows them to solidify the offensive line. And if you get a motivated Deebo Samuel, like I do think that offense was really good last year, can go even further this year. So like, I think they set themselves up pretty well.
Yeah, I love that, and it's crazy they were as good as they were offensively. When you really look at what they were working with, it was Terry McLaurin, it was an aging Zach Ertz, and that was basically it in the passing game. A little bit of Austin Eckler sprinkled in there, like that was De'Ami Brown once every 7 games. And like that was kind of it. So it's pretty incredible. And yeah, adding a Debo, assuming he can get back in shape, is interesting to hear some of the context on that of why he was out of shape. But yeah, if he can get back in shape, I think there's still some stuff left in the tank. So I like both of those. I also like what the Bears did, just really focusing on the trenches, really addressing an area of need as aggressively as they possibly could. And I think, I don't think they were that far away last year from being a good team from a roster perspective. And I think they really shored up those weaknesses. It's going to be, on Caleb Williams and his development and Ben Johnson. But I think the pieces are there for them to be a playoff team this year. So I like that one too.
They've invested a lot in the trenches, both sides too. It's like they've added lots of bodies on the defensive line, so like they're rolling deeper and they've got a lot of depth and competition there, which I think is really good. And completely overhauling the interior of the offensive line. It does feel like a lot of these NFC teams, when we've talked about a lot of NFC teams, and they seem to be the ones that are, there's not a little bit of overcorrection, but also a response to the champion, right? And it's like, okay. We look at the NFC. The NFC doesn't.
They all have cheaper quarterbacks.
They all have cheaper quarterbacks. Nah. They don't have the the world beating quarterbacks. Not all of them do necessarily, but we just saw an all world quarterback get beat in the Super Bowl because of both lines playing outstanding. And so like you're seeing this aggressive correction on the NFC side of all these people. All these teams keep throwing bodies, numbers, volume, cash at defensive line and offensive line. We just talked about 3 NFC teams we liked, and they all are just investing heavily on the D line and O line.
Well, here's an AFC team for you. Denver Broncos. I think they made some good additions to their defense. Obviously it depends a lot on Dre Greenlaw's health and Hufunga's health, but like if those guys can stay healthy, that defense goes from already really good and really annoying to really good, really annoying, and now one of the most physical units. And then the ability to also bring back DJ Jones to be the nose tackle. Like they kind of made big additions or re-signings to all 3 levels of that defense. And even Evan Ingram, who's not like a great player, but you drop him into Sean Payton's offense with what they have going, like Evan Ingram is going to be a functional, player for them and give him that kind of like Joker tight endy role. So like the Broncos unfortunately made some pretty good moves heading into what is looking to be a pretty big like offseason and draft if they hit it for them.
Yeah, no, the Ingram pickup, that's exactly what Sean Payton was looking for.
The Joker.
That Joker, he was very vocal about that. So last one for you guys. Who do you think got hit the hardest this offseason? What offseason do you look at and you're like, they really screwed this up?
Oh, this is great. Just let me go look at the compensatory.
I know exactly.
Really quick.
No, I know. I'm setting you guys up on a silver platter here to do
this
what
is
you do.
great.
The 49ers, the Chiefs signed all their backups. So they're obviously losing depth left and right. But obviously they traded Debo. They lost. We just talked about the 2 guys going to Denver. Like they lost a fair amount of guys. They also cut Hargrave. Like it feels like they're trying to reset their identity, not just their team, but their identity right now. So you obviously have to lose pieces for that. But it feels like they are taking, even on the offensive side, they lost. Trent Williams misses a lot of time. So like losing their competent backup left tackle does matter. They lose with one of their starting guards when he's healthy in Aaron Banks. Like and then Debo off the offensive side, they lost a good player on defense from every single level. So and then Charvarius Ward, I forgot he was out there too. I think the 49ers actually, I didn't realize how many guys they lost. That's a lot of players.
Eagles too. Some of that depth on the defensive line.
Lost like half their defense.
I got it in from hold on. I got it on good authority. The Niners also signed Mac Jones. So that's another L.
All right. They're back. They're good. That's it.
We're finally full circle.
I do think though with the Niners, they did get hit hard, but I liked their draft last year. I think they got a lot of players that can contribute that are going to fill some of those spots that they lost. The issue is it's like at best, maybe it's they tread water and they need to be better than they, beyond the injuries, obviously, like that hurt them a lot. Like even if they were fully healthy last year, I don't know that they were good enough. And I feel like, best case scenario, they're kind of treading water where they were and they got to figure out the Brock deal and all of that still. So there's a lot up in the air with them for sure.
That was Hammy's Burning Questions, which is the craze that is slowly sweeping through KC Sports Network.
I gave you guys a layup though, and you didn't take it to do, as I said, what you guys do best, which is slam these guys. I mean, I thought that's where this was going.
They don't even register as a franchise to me. So,
well, I mean, they did get.
Hey guys, bad news: the Cardinals signed Dalvin Tomlinson, so there's even less available for the Chiefs. By the way, still throw that out there.
Of course,
Naughty. Come on down again.
It's Naughty. It's Pinnell. I can't wait. It's wait. What they do every year.
Do what you were born to do.
Yeah, dude. I do think. Yeah, we can't. We should have dunked on the Bengals harder for continually not paying players.
Nah, I think we gotta wait until they have to fork over like $37 million per year to Jamar Chase because they said they're going to make him the highest paid non-quarterback.
Which would be we gotta wait million, right?
And then they got to pay Trey Hendrickson or trade Trey Hendrickson for like a fifth-round pick of 2032. Yeah. And then we can go ahead and dunk on them. Right now, they're still holding serve. They haven't made those two deep things yet, so they can still hold on just barely.
And T. Higgins ends up holding out, and because they won't get his deal done. And especially after they say they're going to get a first-round pick for, they're targeting a first-round pick for Trey, then dump him for a fifth. Yeah, it's gonna be great.
And then Joe Burrow's Batmobile breaks down. All right.
Well, good thing he got his offensive lineman swords to help him fix it.
Yeah.
Dude, I would be mad if I was one of Joe Burrow's offensive linemen. Like, other people are getting, like, golf carts and Yetis and sometimes both. And then here's a sword.
Can't play real-life Fruit Ninja with those.
The Yeti cooler. Shout out Yeti coolers.
I'm sorry, we've opened the kid out. He thought he had the coolest shit when he pulled out a sword to give him to. He was wearing some kind of like mesh shirt with a leather jacket, and then like he pulled it out from underneath the flap like it was about to be the coolest, most mind-blowing sword of all time, and like presented it in some goofy way. And like one of those guys just like looked at him funny. Like there's no way Orlando Brown Jr. was happy to get a sword. That 6'9" goofy moving guy is not going to do anything with a sword.
He would. Why did we wait 4 months to talk about this? I love that we waited 4 months to make fun of the swords.
As we're getting Rolexes,
like I've seen some cool things. It's like, hey, we're gonna give you all. Like I think everyone gets an entire golf set and a golf cart, right? It's like, hey, you guys are all getting trucks this year, and then Joe Burrow's like, here's a ninja sword, but there's also a story behind it. Okay, cool, thank you for the inspiration. Okay, Cody Ford is just hyped.
Did he get them all different swords? Did somebody get like a rapier and somebody got like a broadsword? Like, how do you determine
they all got Valerian steel
different swords, and there was different stories behind it. Like legitimately, like there was like legitimate stories behind each sword. It's like, okay.
Oh, and he told them the stories too. Like it's
probably he probably had
he had a voice for each one.
They all stood there and like they
all had Morpheus sunglasses on.
Oh.
Some Aaron Rodgers stuff happening there with Joe Burrow, and not in a good way. Only one less ring though. All right, favorite signing, Hamilton. What was your favorite signing for the Kansas City Chiefs so far?
I mean, there's so many to choose from. This is this is tough. I mean, I'll talk about one that we haven't talked about yet. Not necessarily, but Eli Mitchell. I kind of like the Eli Mitchell sign. I know he hasn't played in a while, which is concerning for a running back. But the potential, there's potential there. We saw him have some really productive years in San Francisco. Over the 3 seasons that he played, he was 7th in yards per carry in the entire NFL. He was 12th in rush yards over expected. So you look at, his efficiency numbers are really good. And again, I still think they probably draft a running back at some point, but this puts them in a position where they don't necessarily have to. I think it gives them some good depth there. And I thought that was a solid move.
Wayne, Matthew.
There's 2 left you can pick from, or 3. Sorry.
Well, you could do the re-signs too. I mean,
Yeah, I was going to take Hollywood Brown. I like Fulton. We
Okay.
just gave Fulton a lot off the top of the show.
Yeah,
That was a good signing, but I'll take Hollywood Brown because we did mention it a little bit. I do think in the perfect world, Hollywood Brown, he's not an X wide receiver by any means, but you can play him on the outside. And if you look at how he had operated in Baltimore or even in Arizona when he was healthy, he was an intermediate zone beating, like in breaking route runner. And that's not exactly what the Chiefs are missing on the backside of some of these plays, but that's closer to what they need. If they can get that version of Hollywood Brown, I do think that opens up a little bit more for Rashee Rice when he's healthy underneath, a little bit more for Xavier Worthy, who's, probably at this point better versus man coverage, just again, not as like a backside X wide receiver. And so I do think if you get a better version of Hollywood Brown than what you got last year, because he's not coming off the injury, you're not trying to incorporate him in early, as long as you don't treat him like, and this isn't to be entirely offensive, but like McCole Hardman, because that's not who he is. Don't treat him like that. Let him be a real receiver. I think that could go a long way with helping an offense that really needed one last year. So yeah, I'll take Hollywood Brown back. And he essentially got, the same deal as he got the year before. Go prove it with some incentives. Like I get it.
Yeah, we've spent some time talking about this team needing juice, right? They need some explosion and being able, the Chiefs signing a guy that ran a 4.58 40 at his pro day, 38-inch vertical jump, 11'5" broad jump. Getting James Winchester back on this team is just.
I so knew who that was.
I know, because you're the one that tipped me the numbers. But getting a guy like that back in the mix, I think, is big. I will say I don't know where the Trey Smith saga is going. If the Chiefs get a long-term deal done with him, that's my favorite move. I like that the Chiefs made sure that they secured a blue chip. So this team, I think we've seen this team keep their own a lot. And I think looking at some of the stuff with the left tackle position, I'm not sure I can blame them for doing what they've done to make sure that they're continuing to keep their blue chips, investing in guys like Chris Jones, investing in Trey Smith, in making sure that you keep some of these guys, because I do think it's just slim pickings trying to find these guys outside of it, right? And so, if the Chiefs get something done with Trey Smith, I think that's probably going to be my favorite deal, just making sure that you continue to keep the blue chips, that you're keeping Creed Humphrey. I think that's good business practices for this team, because you're not going to be able to trade or find, the blue chip type players where they're picking. And I think we're kind of learning that a little bit with the left tackle position and what they're having to navigate. Imagine having to do that with other positions as well. I think it makes more sense to just try to keep the guys that you already have in house. And so I'm pro keeping blue chips. So Trent McDuffie, I'm looking forward to the Chiefs keeping you. Hopefully, just make sure you're holding on to these guys as much as you can. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of the Get Mine.
I got to say one last thing.
Yeah,
I feel
okay.
like this last tab,
Mm-hmm.
this last tab was just an elaborate ruse so you could make your James Winchester joke. That was it.
I actually just decided to do that.
See, here's the problem. There's not many to choose from. And I think, we talked about Christian Fulton off the top. So it feels cheap to go right back to that well. And the only other outside free agent they signed, as their most expensive free agent, is a guy that was a backup to Colton McKivitz, because he couldn't win the right tackle job either. So, what
that's why that choice of tab was curious to me. And then it all made sense when I heard the James Winchester joke. So
I think they've made a lot of moves personally, and they've got a lot of moves left to make, both with free agency and the draft. By the way, KCSN draft guide, links in the description of the show if you'd like to buy it. Not the draft guide.
Yeah, Ben Solak was all over it.
Ben was plugging it. Solak was plugging it today. I appreciated that. So that's gonna do it for this episode of the KC Laboratory. Thank you all so much for listening, watching, supporting, joking, making fun of my bald face. We love you. We appreciate you. We'll catch you later.
Face.